I asked Rabbi Mark if I could give a sermon with my sleeves rolled up. He said, yeah, why not? And make sure you're not futzing with your tallis either. So, what the heck? I'm just going to...
For a control freak like Matt, you have no idea how important a day this is.
I'm not a control freak. I just like things to be organized. God, I don't understand. It seems like my life is enhanced when I build our relationship, when I work to develop it, and it also feels really difficult for me. Initially, when I wrote this sermon, I had this lovely piece about how I've moved past the desire for intellectual understanding, how I've come to acceptance of the fact that I can't fully grasp what you are or what a relationship with you is like. And then yesterday, as I'm finishing up the sermon, I had this call with my student loan servicer, and you already know the details, but I learned yesterday, never call your student loan servicer right before the new year. And it was laid bare for me how I'm not in acceptance of that yet. I still want control. I still want to understand more clearly than I do, and that gets in the way of having a relationship with you. I still want things to go the way I think they should go, and I consider that the key part of our relationship. I'm reminded of a video featuring Rabbi Abraham Twersky. He shares a story from the Kutzker Rebbe. The Kutzker Rebbe saw his student eating some fish, and he said, why are you eating that fish? And the student said, oh, I love this fish. The Kutzker looked at him and said, you love that fish? You love that fish so much, you caught it, you killed it, you boiled it, and now you're eating it? You don't love the fish. You love yourself. And God, I think too often what I have with you is fish love. That our relationship is about how I feel in the moment. If I'm getting what I want from you, that's not really a relationship. And then when I don't get that, I go all the way to the opposite end of the spectrum. I say, forget this. I'm not getting what I want. There's no point. If I'm not getting things the way I want them to be, forget it. And I felt that very strongly yesterday, and in many ways, I still am today. And so I think about my relationship with you, and I think about relationships in general, and I see those polar opposite ends of the spectrum, and I know that in the middle, there's that interdependence, right? When I think about interdependence with another person, it's I can be myself, they can be themselves, right? We don't lose our integrity, and yet there's still love, there's still support, there's still caring, and we engage with each other from that place. But I don't know what that looks like with you. I know I don't feel it as much as I want, and I don't know how I'm supposed to develop that. I will tell you that I have found solace. Last night and this morning, I've heard a number of the residents here talk about this very same struggle. And I do find help in that, knowing that I'm not alone. And I also find solace in the fact that our tradition has a number of figures who wrestle exactly the way that I do. I see it most clearly, I'd say, in the book of Jonah. I know we usually read it on Yom Kippur, but give me a break. I see how it illustrates each of those types of relationship. Initially, of course, Jonah runs away. He says, I can't do this. I can't be in relationship with you. You called out to him. You said, go to Nineveh. And Jonah said, nope, and went in the opposite direction. That he avoided that opportunity to connect with you and to be in relationship with you. And I see how I do the same thing. I see how I do it with relationships in my life with other people. My younger son, who was sick this week at 3:30 in the morning when he was calling for me, and my first response wasn't, how can I help, but please, so I can go back to bed. But he needed me. And eventually I got up, but only begrudgingly. I see the ways in which I don't rise to the call with other people and with you. And there is that interdependence in the middle of the book. When you have had Jonah swallowed by a whale, please, no, thank you. But when you've had Jonah swallowed by a whale, and he prays to you and he calls out to you, and he's spat back up onto land, and you call to Jonah again, and this time Jonah takes action. He takes your direction. He does what he's supposed to do. And I see that as a model of what an interdependent relationship with you might look like. It's simple. It's concrete. And I know there are times in my life when I ask for help, as Jonah did, and I take my best guess at what the concrete action you would have me take might be. I felt that most clearly this year at my ordination, when after months, years of being stuck in that place, I got direction from other people, what felt like direction from you, and I took that action, and at my ordination about 6 months ago, that was one of the moments I felt the most connected with you that I've ever felt. And I see also, even yesterday, when I was having a tough time, I got out of it a little bit. I asked other people for help, I reworked the sermon, but it's temporary. It feels like it's not enough. It feels like I need more. And it's really hard to sustain that feeling. And so then, right, not getting what I want and thinking, well, I've done the work to build the relationship for a solid 30 seconds. Now I therefore feel like I'm entitled to get exactly what I want from you. Jonah does the same thing. At the end of the book, after he's gone to Nineveh, after he's done what God asked him to do, told them to repent, and they actually listen, and they're not destroyed like God said they would be, Jonah isn't happy. He did what he was supposed to do, and you didn't hold up your end of the deal. And he sits outside the city and he says to you, this aggrieves me so much, I would rather die. I would rather die than not get what I want from you. And again, in the same chapter, when you have a tree grow to provide him shade, and then the tree dies, and he reaches out to you and says, I would rather die than not have the tree. I know we've all had relationship with people like that. And I see myself in Jonah. Truth be told, I'm with Jonah on this one. And it's so petty. It feels so superficial. There are so many people in this world with bigger problems than mine, tougher problems than mine, and I still feel entitled to get what I want from you. Not just you. If my kids don't listen to me the first time I ask them to do something, what's the point of being a parent? I know, they're not teenagers yet. I know. Right? If I'm having a conversation with Sarah and I hear something that utzes me just a little bit, what do you mean? Right? That I conflate love with getting what I want. If you aren't magic, what's the point? Just earlier this week, I was looking for a parking spot, a crowded street. I found a parking spot. Baruch Hashem. I said it out loud. That's the criterion. I get a parking spot and you the man. I know it's ridiculous, but that's how I feel, and it gets in the way. And this is what I was confronted with again yesterday. Bigger problem than a parking spot. But still, in the spectrum of issues I could be having, I'll figure it out, but I feel myself closing up, creating distance. And I have an intellectual understanding that it's impossible to understand, forget you, any other party in the context of a relationship. I can never fully understand another person in their totality. I'm lucky if I understand myself. My wife still surprises me My kids sure as hell do. And I'm reminded of a great quote, forgive the block quote, a great quote by David Foster Wallace from his short story, Good Old Neon, about the challenge of connecting with another person. Wallace writes that there's a difference between the size and speed of everything that flashes through you and the tiny, inadequate bit of it all that you can ever let anyone know. As though inside you is this enormous room full of what seems like everything in the whole universe at one time or another, and yet the only parts that get out have to somehow squeeze through a tiny keyhole. As if we're all trying to see each other through these tiny keyholes. It does have a knob. The door can open, but not the way you think. I know that's true for us with each other. I know how hard it is to fully express myself to another person. I know how hard it is to fully express myself to you, even though I'm trying to do that right now. I can't imagine what it must be like for you to try to fit yourself through whatever the keyhole is for you, to try to reach out and be in a relationship with me, to be in a relationship with us. And I'm working really hard on accepting you, God, for what you are, accepting you on your terms. Because I know I can't be in a relationship if I don't accept the other party, and I can't be in a relationship if I don't accept that there's unknown. And it's hard. It's a real challenge to remember that you don't fit into a tidy box. You aren't predictable the way I would want you to be. I can't control other people in my life. I certainly can't control you. And I do believe, and I've experienced it, that you're the force that jars me out of my static ways of being, that gets my attention. And as uncomfortable as that can be, I do know I need it sometimes. And particularly on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Teruah, the day of the sounding of the shofar, that call that wakes us up. I know that's part of what you are. And I'm trying to accept that. And it's not enough to just stay in my head. It's not enough to just have an intellectual response. Relationships aren't just built on thoughts and feelings. They're built on action. And even though I want to think about it more and I want to get in touch with my feelings, it's not just about my thoughts and feelings. It's about what I do. And I know that's part of how I can work on opening that door. Our tradition teaches that you need us in the world. In Heschel's words, we're each a divine need. And I see in my own life when I do take that action, that I grow, that I change, that I feel closer to you. And those tiny incremental steps. This past week, I finally committed to actually locking my door at lunch, taking a few minutes and just meditating for 10 minutes to try to connect with myself and with you in the middle of the day. And I felt different. It wasn't the magic pill that solved everything, but it helped. I did feel closer to you, and yet I still see how easily that gets all thrown off kilter. And I see it in the book of Jonah, too, that what made the tshuva of the people of Nineveh possible is when Jonah took the action that you directed him to do. That's what caused good in the world. That's the positive outcome of the story, and it only happened because Jonah was in partnership with you. I know intellectually, even though I don't always feel it, I know that I need you in my life. And for whatever reason, there are things that you need me to do, whether because you can't do them or you don't do them or you won't do them, I don't know. And so whether I like it or not, it seems like I am already in that interdependent relationship with you. So how do I build that? How can I grow that? Rabbi Mark reminded me that on Yom Kippur, before we read the book of Jonah, we read the holiness code out of Kedoshim. And the holiness code consists of a detailed list of all of these different ways of engaging in the world in holy action, from not turning to idolatry to not setting a stumbling block before the blind, from the way we talk to other people to how we can engage in a spiritual practice. So it's through those actions. It has to be through those actions. That's the only way I can get out of my head. And I do see that in the healthy relationships that I have. That when I take action, simple action, if I'm feeling disconnected from my wife and I do the dishes, I feel more connected. If I'm getting frustrated with my kids and I make sure to read them a bedtime story, I feel more connected. If I haven't talked to my parents or my siblings in a while and I just reach out to make a call or try to FaceTime them, I feel more connected. So I am going to commit to working on that with you, to getting out of my head and taking more action. I also learn from the way that that's worded that those words, kadoshim tihiyu, are in the imperfect tense, which in biblical Hebrew means it's a started but not yet complete action. I want that complete understanding. I want our relationship to be cut and dry and clear and just static so that I know I have it. But no relationship is like that. And certainly not our relationship. And so I commit to trying to remember. I commit to remembering and working on that not quite achievable goal of that fully realized interdependence. I know we won't fully get there, but I'm committed to keep trying. I've also been thinking about how those words are written the plural, not the singular. You've been hearing me talk a lot about myself the past few minutes, no big surprise there. But what helps get me out of that over-intellectualized back and forth, and why isn't it like that, and it should be like this, and so on and so on. I need other people. I need other people to bring me out of that. In fact, just yesterday, after that phone call, I needed to clear my head. I went for a walk, and as I turned the corner off of Venice, I bumped into a former resident of Beit Shuvah who had been working at the thrift store, and he with delight told me that it was his last day working at the thrift store, and he was moving on to another job. And you remember, when this guy moved into Beit Shuvah, he was in bad shape. And a couple of years later, he's put a life together for himself. And he said to me, I have so much gratitude for Beit Shuvah, and I have so much gratitude for you and what you did for me. And I gave him a hug. And in that moment, even though it was just for a moment, I was out of that anger. I was out of that frustration. I was connected. I was connected with him, and I think I was connected with you. God, with all due respect, you're a little too abstract. I can't. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. So what I'm going to try to focus on is not trying to understand you in the abstract, but seeing you in other people, to seeing the spark of you in others, which will hopefully kindle me seeing the spark of you in me. And that's only possible when I stay present and when I stay open to my life. And it's funny, I only realized it just this morning. Maybe it's no accident that these words that are driving me forward, kadoshim tihiyu, are the very words that I had put on my talit from ordination. So I have that reminder. So God, I ask you to help me stay present. I ask you to help me stay open to seeing what I need to see and hearing what I need to hear. I ask you to help me build that relationship with you, even and especially because it can be so difficult. I know I need it. I ask you to help me keep opening that door, even though it probably won't be in the ways I necessarily expect. And God, I just ask that in this coming year you bless me, you bless all of us with happiness, with health, with the ability to see you in each other, and with the ability to draw closer to each other and to build those relationships with ourselves and with you and with everyone in this room. Amen. Well,